the latest i7 is something like, I don't know, whatever it is, 3 gigahertz. And it's like, I don't know, I forget if it's a 6-core hyper-threaded or something. It's like 3 cores, it's hyper-threaded to 6 virtual CPUs that the operating system sees. So that's a 6 CPU running at 3 gigahertz, so 6 times 3, 18 gigahertz, right? Well, Chuck Moore has a chip with something like 288 small computers, and each one runs at I don't know how many megahertz or whatever, but the total comes out to like 50 gigahertz. And this computer runs on like 1/1000th of the power of the equivalent i7 from Intel. Right? And this is like one guy with a small team, I don't know how many, 20, 30 people that help him. Imagine if that guy got the money that Harvard gets, like $10 billion a year. I mean, they would just they would take on Intel and AMD head to head, you know? And he said that, you know, his chip can, since it's basically a small network of CPUs anyway, it's nothing to create a huge grid, right? It doesn't matter if it's on the same motherboard or the next one, right? So you could, and since they're so low power, you can jam like a zillion of these chips into like a small space and remove the heat pretty easily because there's not much heat and power. So you have like vastly superior technology, but they're being frozen out. No local government will give them any contract to do it. No business will give them any contract to go ahead and build their own social network or their own online, you know, massively multiplayer online role-playing game, or do their equivalent, you know, YouTube killer kind of application or whatever and what have you. Because the usury bankers want to push garbage like Oracle and Microsoft and Salesforce, you know, this kind of crap. And it's like, it's stunning, man. It's stunning. Remember, one-page JavaScript apps are garbage, right? You can go back to like Navis Server and PostgreSQL that ran basically America Online. It was like, you know, Google back in the day. And that tech is like much faster, actually. Like when you see these, people are being taught to use these JavaScript junk apps. It's just like being on the phone. Like you click something, right? And it tries to do a menu. And then the thing will just collapse when you're trying to put the data in. And you're like, what the hell is that? And then you open it again. And this time you can like put in the data and you'll hit enter, right? But that collapsing is software error. That's garbage. That's stuff that you think, oh, it doesn't really matter. It just kind of is a little flaky. I just open it again and it works. But that's really the app slowing you down, right? If you didn't have that, you just put your data into a regular web page and hit enter and let it refresh, it would be faster than what you just did. People are just being trained to accept shit from phones and from crappy like web interfaces that use JavaScript, because it's all the surveillance goes on behind the scenes. And JavaScript is a garbage language anyway, right? Now people are getting into like with Gnoga.com using, you know, HTML5 and all this async stuff. So anyway, it's like we can do so much better, and like it's really sad because China's mass producing cities. Go look up ghost cities, right? They have in Japan and China trains that are way faster than our trains. We can't seem to run a profitable train. It's because we regulate it to death. We have too many avaricious, useless, empty suit lawyers and politicians and environmental goofballs, right? Because the end run of all those environmental and academic idiots is to suck money out of everybody else, is to suck money out of the actual manufacturing that's going on. And the way they do it is environmental and regulatory compliance. That's the blood sucking that's going on. None of it's needed. It's all theft, mega theft. And that kind of theft of tax money is treason. And the penalty for treason is, you know, well, go look that up in the Constitution, how they deal with traitors, right? Go look up the Alien and Sedition Acts. So Trump, again, to circle back, by far the best ever. I got a little ranty here, but you probably got a lot of good info out of this. And you can go look up any of these things. These are all really exciting things. Like look up flibe.com, FLIBE.com. That is the only like correct atomic safe power right now. All the other like, see all the other screwballs from Silicon Valley try to do these like half-assed versions, and then Gates is trying to do a half-assed version in China. Like, dude, why are you doing it with China? Because then China's going to steal the tech, you moron. We should be doing it here. But beryllium and lithium or whatever salts that Kirk Sorensen's talking about, that's the way to do it. And like you can make like a really small atomic reactor, and then if it messes up or you lose the power, it has an icy plug in the bottom that's like kept frozen. And if the power goes off, the nuclear reaction, the really hot salt stuff, melts that and goes down into a drain tank down below that's designed to get rid of all the heat. It's like specifically engineered to like expand the heat safely. But so with the power off, the thing shuts itself down. So it's like a staggering level of safety compared to the crappy old school uranium and water pressure, huge pressure dome like Fukushima, right? And of course, the media always goes nuts about any little nuclear like screw up because the usury bankers hate atomic power because it makes Israel and the whole Middle East and a lot of international trade BS totally irrelevant. Because if you had pretty much unlimited power to make things here, you could do all the factories here and build everything, right? And everybody could be like massively rich. You have people like retiring at like 25 or 30 if they have kids, and just having 3-4 houses each, all big, wide, spacious houses. And you know what? If you want to make it fancy or great, but I'm talking about the basic house, right? The basic like 60-foot by 60-foot house should be like, you should be able to buy one of those in like 3 months of labor, or maybe 6 months of labor. You shouldn't be laboring 30 years to get like a crappy 3,600 square foot box. And even like in places like here, like Boston, like a 3,600 square foot house would be like, $3 million. It's like so out of reach. I'm talking about in a good neighborhood that doesn't have a bunch of crime, right? It's like so out of reach of the common person, unless you're like a hardcore like investment banker or surgeon, software guy like me. It's like, the average Joe is completely screwed. And that's like terrible. It's the wealth of a nation is based on how well can the citizen live, right? And the biggest thing everybody pays for is rent and a house, rent and a mortgage. So why not mass produce that so it's cheap, like desktop computers, so we can all chill? Well, because the lawyers and bankers and politicians hate that, because then they can enslave you by making you like feel massive scarcity. It's artificial scarcity. And that's what people need to figure out. And capitalism will not fix it. Ben Shapiro idiots and Lolberts are idiots. They'll never talk about open borders for Israel or anything, or why, like Europe and the US and Canada and Oz are getting flooded by all these third worlders. No, why don't you go to the third world and have a baby permit so they don't have like 100 gazillion babies, so they can build wealth and the people that are there can then get wealthy and have a nice life. Instead, they're being paid to have more and more kids, right? Because they get aid if they have a kid. Stop paying moms to have kids. Stop it. It's really, really bad. Because many women will just like rather have a kid than work. And that's terrible because everybody should be engineers under the kingdom. But that doesn't mean you have to like, if you're not that into it, you can just help. You can be like a more basic engineer, or you can be an assembler or whatever. But having useless administrators and project managers is not what you want to do, because these idiots start to think that they're the ones creating the value, and that's really dangerous and really cancerous and really dumb. And it explains like the way the world's a mess. Look, at the bottom line is, think about it. Why work 30 years to get a box when you can mass produce those boxes and maybe work 3 or 6 months and get one, and then chill, right? We've already got food pretty cheap, and that's nothing. Food is still massively expensive in America. Now we have Biden and making it even more expensive, right? It's absolutely insane. Again, Trump's by far the best ever. Obama's by far the worst ever. All we're going to end up with Biden is more debt and more people paid to do nothing and massive regulations and everything ass backward the way it should be. Even Trump isn't perfect because he's such a nut hugger for Israel and all that BS. I wouldn't be surprised if we find out that Venezuela is being starved to death by bankers that want money for loans that previous corrupt politicians made that were overpaid, right? Those loans should all just be forgiven. And that's why Mnuchin and the Fed are trying to sanction and do all this stuff. That's usury bankers attacking Venezuela. They should just tell the bankers to fuck off. And we here should round up the bankers and basically strip them of titles, strip them of assets, and deport them or gank them as treasonous bastards that they are. And again, jails, something to say about Sheriff Grady Judd, it shouldn't be like $100 a day to hold someone in a jail. It should be like $100 a month. You should be getting like water and like one piece of bread with peanut butter scraped onto it. And go buy a big jug of peanut butter for each prisoner at Walmart. And then those prisoners owe all that money back. Remember, problem creators pay for the fix. The taxpayer should not be paying for all this, including cops.